The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched higher than most human buildings. Crystal walls caught the light from 3 different suns and threw rainbows across the floor. Ambassador Hyen Woo Kim walked across that floor now, his black diplomatic suit looking very small next to the towering alien forms around him. Behind him walked Narration, Earth's military attaché. Her uniform was crisp and clean, but she felt the eyes of 1,000 different species watching her every step. Some had 6 legs, others floated in the air like living clouds. A few were just balls of light that spoke without mouths. The human delegation reached the center of the hall. Hyen Woo carried a simple briefcase in his hand. Inside was Earth's formal application to join the Stellar Federation. They had worked on this document for 3 years. Every word had been chosen carefully. Every fact had been checked a dozen times. Honored council members, Hyen Woo began, his voice echoing in the vast space. I come before you today representing the planet Earth and all of humanity. We wish to join the great community of worlds that makes up the Stellar Federation. A sound started from somewhere in the massive crowd. It was soft at first, like wind through trees. Then it grew louder. Hyen Woo realized with growing horror that it was laughter. The Veltharan Prime Minister stood up from his crystal throne. He was 12 feet tall and looked like a living diamond. When he spoke, his voice rang like bells. Did you hear that? He said to the assembly. The little apes want to join our federation. More laughter rippled through the crowd. The Zephyrian Trade Consul, a being made of swirling gas and starlight, spoke next. What do humans have to offer us? They barely made it off their own planet. Their fastest ships use chemical rockets. Chemical rockets. Like children playing with fireworks. Nari felt her jaw clench. She had served on 3 different starships. She knew exactly how advanced human technology had become, but the orders were clear. Say nothing. Let them laugh. Let them think humans were weak and stupid. Their lifespan is laughably short, added another voice from the crowd. This came from a Keplerite, one of the machine beings that lived for thousands of years. Most of them die before they reach 100 years. How can such brief creatures contribute anything meaningful to galactic civilization? Hyen Woo opened his briefcase and pulled out a data pad. If the Council would review our application, you would see that humanity has much to offer. Our scientists have made breakthrough discoveries in medicine and energy production. Our mathematicians have solved problems that have puzzled the galaxy for centuries. Problems that puzzled the galaxy. The Veltharan Prime Minister's laughter sounded like breaking glass. Young species, you have been in space for less than a century. We have been exploring the stars for 10,000 years. What could you possibly know that we do not? The crowd erupted in laughter again. Nari watched aliens wiping tears from their eyes, or whatever passed for eyes in their species. Some were actually slapping their knees if they had knees. The Zephyrian Trade Consul was spinning in circles, his gas form pulsing with what could only be amusement. Perhaps, said a new voice, we should give them a participation prize, like children at a school competition. This came from Admiral Zethkar of the Dominion Fleet. His species looked like giant spiders made of metal, and his 8 eyes gleamed with cruel humor. We could give them a nice certificate. Thank you for trying to be a real civilization. The laughter grew so loud that the crystal walls began to vibrate. Hyen Woo stood perfectly still, his face showing no emotion. He had expected this. They all had. This was exactly what Earth's leaders had predicted would happen. "Your application is denied," announced the council speaker, an ancient being whose species was so old that no one remembered their original name. "Humanity is not ready to join the galactic community. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when you have grown beyond your primitive ways, you may apply again. But until then," added the Viltharan Prime Minister, "please continue to entertain us with your adorable attempts at civilization. It is quite amusing to watch." The formal session ended with stamps and official documents. Hyun Woo accepted the rejection papers with a polite bow. "Thank you for your consideration," he said. "We understand your decision." As the human delegation left the Great Hall, Nari heard whispered comments following them. "Look how they walk on just 2 legs. How do they keep from falling over? I heard they still fight wars with chemical explosives, not even energy weapons. My pet has more intelligence than their entire species. Did you see their little metal ships? I could fit one in my cargo hold. They call themselves the dominant species on their planet. What else lives there, rocks?" The laughter and mockery continued until the humans were out of earshot. Hyun Woo and Nari walked to their shuttle in complete silence. Only when they were safely inside and the doors were sealed did either of them speak. "Phase 1. Complete?" Nari said quietly. "Indeed," Hyun-woo replied. "They think exactly what we wanted them to think." The shuttle lifted off from the council station and began its journey back to Earth. As they traveled through hyperspace, Hyun-woo opened a secure communication channel. On the other end, Dr. Tae-min Park appeared on the screen. He was sitting in what looked like an ordinary laboratory, but Nari knew it was actually 3 miles underground. Behind him, she could see banks of computers and monitoring equipment that most alien species would not be able to understand. "Report," Dr. Park said simply. "Complete success," Hyun-woo replied. "They rejected us exactly as predicted. No suspicion. They think we are primitive and harmless." Dr. Park nodded slowly. His weathered face showed no expression, but Nari thought she saw a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. "How did they react to our technology demonstrations?" "They barely looked at them," Nari answered. "The Viltharan Prime Minister called our fusion drives chemical rockets. The Trade Consul said we were playing with fireworks." "Perfect," Dr. Park said. "And our ships?" "They scanned them briefly," Hyun-woo said. "Found exactly what we wanted them to find. Basic metal hulls, simple reactor signatures, primitive weapon systems. The false readings worked perfectly." Dr. Park smiled for the first time in the conversation. It was not a pleasant smile. "Excellent. All those years of careful preparation have paid off. They see only what they expect to see." The screen flickered as Dr. Park moved to another part of his laboratory. Behind him, Nari could now see massive, holographic displays showing star charts of the entire galaxy. Thousands of red dots marked alien worlds and installations. Green dots showed human assets that the aliens did not know existed. "The real ships are in position?" Hyun-woo asked. "All stealth fleets are holding at designated coordinates," Dr. Park confirmed. "They have been watching the aliens for months, learning their patrol routes, their communication patterns, their weaknesses. And our people inside their governments? All agents report ready status. We have assets in every major alien capital. Some have been in place for over 20 years. Nari felt a chill run down her spine. 20 years. Some of these operations had been planned since before she was born. While she was growing up thinking humans were the new kids in the galaxy, her government had already been preparing for this day. What about the research projects? She asked. Dr. Park's smile grew wider. Project Erebus is ahead of schedule. We now have working prototypes of every major alien technology, plus several improvements they have not thought of yet. Our dimensional fold drives are ready for field testing. The quantum entanglement weapons have exceeded all performance expectations. The shuttle's navigation system chimed softly. They were approaching Earth's solar system. Through the viewport, Nari could see the blue-green marble that was humanity's homeworld. It looked so peaceful and innocent from space. Phase 2 is authorized, Dr. Park announced. Captain Han will receive her orders within the hour. All department heads are to report to Facility 7 for final briefings. Understood, Hyun-woo said. How long do you estimate before they realize their mistake? Dr. Park was quiet for a moment, considering. If we do this correctly, they never will. They will think we got lucky. They will think we found some alien technology and copied it. They will never suspect the truth. Which is that humanity has been preparing for this war since the day we first detected their radio signals. That every primitive human achievement has been carefully designed to make us look harmless. That we have been watching them, learning from them, and planning their defeat for over 60 years. The communication ended. Hyun-woo and Nari sat in silence as their shuttle approached Earth. Below them they could see the orbital stations, that the aliens thought were simple communication relays. In reality, they were some of the most advanced weapons platforms ever built. Do you think we are doing the right thing? Nari asked quietly. Hyun-woo considered this for a long moment. They had their chance to accept us as equals. They chose to mock us instead. They chose to see us as inferior beings, good only for their entertainment. And now they will learn that the most dangerous enemies are the ones you do not take seriously. The shuttle docked at Luna Station. As they disembarked, Nari could see hundreds of other ships coming and going. To any alien observer, they would look like simple cargo vessels and passenger transports. The truth was very different. The comedy show was over. It was time for the real performance to begin. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council rejected humanity's application. The aliens had already forgotten about the small delegation from Earth. They were busy with more important things, like trade negotiations and territorial disputes between the major powers. On Kepler 442b, a Valtheran mining operation was having problems. Chief Engineer Veltar stood in front of his control panel, staring at readings that made no sense. The quantum extractors were working perfectly yesterday. Today, they were producing half the normal output. Run a full diagnostic, he ordered his team. The Valtherans were experts with technology. Their crystal bodies could interface directly with computers. If there was a problem, they would find it quickly. Hours passed. The diagnostic found nothing wrong. Every component was working within normal parameters. The quantum field generators were stable. The power systems were running at full capacity. Yet somehow the extractors were only producing 50% of their usual yield. Maybe it is a software problem, suggested Junior Engineer Kylvin. The control algorithms might have a bug. Veltar considered this. Software bugs were rare in Valtheran systems, but not impossible. Download the latest patches from the home network. If that does not work, we will replace the entire control system. The patches were installed. The system was rebooted. The extractors still produced half output. On the other side of the galaxy, similar problems were starting to appear. A Zephyrian fuel depot reported that their storage tanks were leaking, but no leaks could be found. A Dominion factory world discovered that their assembly lines were running 20% slower than normal, despite all equipment testing perfect. Commander. So Young Lee watched these reports from the bridge of her ship. The vessel appeared on no official records. Its hull was made of materials that bent light around them, making it invisible to every known form of detection. The ship's name was Baiko, and it was one of humanity's most advanced stealth vessels. Deployment. Successful on Target 7, reported Lieutenant Jin-Woo Nam from his station. All nanobots are active and spreading through their computer network. So Young nodded. The nanobots were smaller than viruses. They could slip through any filter, bypass any security system. Once inside alien computers, they would replicate themselves and begin their work, not destroying anything, not stealing information, just making tiny changes to efficiency algorithms. A decimal point moved here, a timing sequence adjusted there. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger alarms. How many sites have we hit so far? So Young asked. 47 industrial facilities, 12 mining operations, and 6 major transport hubs, Jin-Woo replied, all showing reduced efficiency within acceptable parameters. The aliens think they are having normal equipment problems. Good. Continue to the next target list. The Baiko moved through space like a ghost. Its engines left no heat signature. Its passage created no gravitational waves. To every sensor in the galaxy, the space it occupied was completely empty. Meanwhile, on Nexus Station, Agent Dong-Hyun Choi was having lunch at a popular restaurant. He looked like any other human tourist visiting the galaxy's largest trade hub. His clothes were simple. His behavior was unremarkable. He took pictures of famous landmarks and bought souvenirs in the gift shops. But Dong-Hyun was not really a tourist. Neural implants hidden deep in his brain were recording everything he saw and heard. The implants were made from materials that did not exist in any alien database. No scanner could detect them. No security system could find them. He sat at a table next to a group of Keplerite merchants. The machine beings were discussing shipping routes through the Outer Rim. They complained about increased pirate activity in the Vega sector. They worried about new tariffs the Dominion Empire was considering. Dong-Hyun smiled and nodded politely when they included him in their conversation. Inside his head, the neural implants recorded every word, every route, every security protocol, every weakness in the galactic trade network. "Excuse me," said one of the Keplerites. "Are you from Earth?" "Yes," Dong-Hyun replied with a friendly smile. "This is my first time visiting the station. It is amazing how big everything is out here." The Keplerites exchanged glances. Their optical sensors flickered with amusement. "You humans are so new to space travel," one of them said. "How do you manage to navigate between stars with such primitive technology?" "Oh, we get by," Dong-Hyun said modestly. "Our computers are not as advanced as yours, but they work well enough for simple trips." "Simple trips," another Keplerite repeated. "That is adorable. Do you know that this station processes more cargo in one day than your entire planet produces in a year?" Dong-Hyun looked appropriately impressed. "Really? That is incredible. How do you organize so much activity?" The Keplerites were happy to explain. They told him about the central computer system that tracked every ship, every cargo container, every transaction. They described the security networks that protected the station from pirates and smugglers. They even mentioned the backup systems that would keep everything running if the main computers failed. Dong-hyun listened with wide-eyed wonder, asking simple questions that made the Keplerites feel very smart and important. He never let them suspect that his neural implants were recording the exact specifications of every system they described. When lunch was over, Dong-hyun thanked the Keplerites for their time and went back to his hotel room. Once inside, he activated a quantum communication device hidden in his luggage. The device was no bigger than a coin, but it could send messages instantly across the entire galaxy. "Control, this is Tourist 7, he said quietly. "I have complete blueprints of Nexus. Station Central Systems, transmitting now." Thousands of light years away, Dr. Ji-Hye-yoon received the transmission in her laboratory on Earth. She was the head of the Xenopsychology Department, officially tasked with studying alien cultures. Unofficially, she was building detailed psychological profiles of every major species in the galaxy. The information from Dong-hyun was added to her growing database. She now had architectural plans for hundreds of alien facilities, communication protocols for dozens of governments, security procedures for the galaxy's most important installations. But more importantly, she had psychological data. She knew which species were naturally suspicious and which ones trusted easily. She knew which cultures valued honor above profit and which ones would sell their own mothers for the right price. She knew the fears, hopes, and weaknesses of every alien civilization humanity might encounter. "Fascinating," she murmured as she reviewed the latest reports. The Valtharans were becoming increasingly frustrated with their equipment problems. Their rigid, logical minds could not accept that technology could fail without a clear cause. This psychological stress was making them sloppy, causing them to miss obvious solutions to their problems. The Zephyrians were responding differently. As energy beings, they were more adaptable than the crystal-bodied Valtharans. But their adaptability was also their weakness. They would try dozens of different solutions, never focusing long enough on any one approach to be truly effective. The dominants were the most dangerous. Their spider-like minds were naturally paranoid. They would eventually suspect sabotage, even if they could not prove it. But they were also territorial and isolated. They would not share their suspicions with other species until it was too late. Dr. Yoon smiled as she typed her notes. Every alien species had been studied, cataloged, and analyzed. Humanity knew exactly how each one would react to stress, confusion, and fear. This knowledge would be invaluable in the coming campaign. The mining world of Altair 7, Chief Engineer Veltar was having another bad day. The quantum extractors were now producing only 30% of normal output. Worse, 3 of the backup generators had mysteriously shut down during the night shift. "This is impossible," he said to his assistant. "Equipment does not fail this way. There must be a cause." "Perhaps we should contact the manufacturer," suggested Junior Engineer Kielvin. "Maybe they have seen this problem before." Veltar activated the communication system. Within hours, he was speaking to technical experts on the Valtharan homeworld. They reviewed all the diagnostic data. They suggested dozens of possible solutions. Nothing worked. Meanwhile, nanobots invisible to Valtharan sensors continued their work. They moved through the mining facility's computer networks like digital termites, making tiny changes to critical systems. A cooling fan would run 5% slower. A pressure valve would close 2 seconds later than programmed. A sensor would report readings that were 99% accurate instead of perfect. Each change was too small to notice. Together, they created cascading failures that brought the entire operation to its knees. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. The Zephyrian fuel depot had to shut down 2 of its storage tanks. The Dominion factory world was running at 60% capacity. Trade routes were experiencing mysterious delays as automated systems made minor errors in scheduling and navigation. The aliens were frustrated, but they were not yet suspicious. Equipment problems happened sometimes. Systems got old and needed maintenance. These things were annoying, but they were part of running a galactic civilization. They had no idea that humanity was watching their every move. They did not know about the stealth ships that ghosted through their space, undetected and untrackable. They could not imagine that the primitive humans they had mocked were capable of such sophisticated sabotage. In her underground laboratory, Dr. Yoon reviewed the latest psychological reports. The stress levels among alien populations were rising exactly as her models predicted. The Veltharans were becoming obsessed with finding logical explanations for illogical problems. The Zephyrians were scattered and unfocused, trying everything and succeeding at nothing. The Dominans were starting to suspect sabotage, but they were looking in all the wrong places. Phase 2, proceeding according to schedule, she reported to her superiors. Target species are responding as predicted. Psychological conditioning is effective. The aliens were still laughing at humanity, but the laughter was becoming forced. There was a nervous edge to it now, a hint of uncertainty. They still believed humans were primitive and harmless, but they were starting to wonder why everything seemed to be going wrong at the same time. They would have their answer soon enough. Humanity was just getting started. The war came without warning. Admiral Korath of the Corvanthi Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devourer. Through the massive viewport, he could see his battle fleet spreading across space like a metal storm. 200 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, each one capable of destroying entire cities with a single shot. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said his tactical officer. "Target planets have been identified. The Federation will never expect an attack of this scale." Korath smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The Corvanthi looked like living nightmares, tall, black-skinned beings with claws that could cut through steel and eyes that glowed red in the dark. They had been the galaxy's most feared warriors for over 1,000 years. "Begin the assault," Korath ordered. "Show these peaceful fools what real power looks like." The Corvanthi fleet split into 3 groups. Each group targeted a different Federation world. Their weapons were the most advanced in the galaxy: plasma cannons that could melt mountains, dimensional missiles that appeared inside enemy ships, and energy shields that no known weapon could penetrate. The first target was Harmony Station, a peaceful research facility where scientists from 12 different species worked together. The station's defense fleet consisted of 6 patrol ships armed with basic energy weapons. They did not stand a chance. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, Harmony Station was a cloud of burning debris. 60,000 beings were dead. The survivors escaped in life pods, carrying news of the attack to the rest of the galaxy. The second target was New Geneva, a diplomatic world where the Federation held peace conferences and trade negotiations. The planet had no military defenses at all. The Corvanthi orbital bombardment turned 3 major cities into craters of melted glass. The third target was Kepler Prime, one of the most important industrial worlds in Keplerite space. The machine beings tried to resist with their automated defense platforms, but Corvanthi technology was too advanced. The planet's factories were destroyed. Its orbital shipyards became floating graveyards. News of the attacks spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The Federation Council called an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in panic, their previous confidence shattered. "How is this possible?" demanded the Veltheran Prime Minister. His crystalline form was flickering with stress patterns. "The Corvanthi signed peace treaties. They agreed to the non-aggression pact." "Treaties mean nothing to warriors," replied Admiral Zethkar of the Dominion Fleet. His 8 spider eyes glowed with anger. "We should have destroyed them when we had the chance." The Zephyrian Trade Consul spun in agitated circles. "Our combined fleets are no match for their technology. They have dimensional warfare capabilities. Their shields can stop any weapon we possess." The council chamber filled with panicked voices. Some species called for immediate surrender. Others demanded a hopeless counterattack. A few suggested fleeing to distant galaxies where the Corvanthi could not follow them. In the middle of this chaos, Ambassador Hyun-Woo Kim requested permission to speak. The chamber fell silent. Most of the aliens had forgotten that humans were, even members of the Council Observer Program. The small biped walked to the center of the room, his movements calm and controlled. "Honored council members," Hyun-Woo said quietly, "Earth wishes to offer humanitarian assistance in this crisis." The silence stretched for several seconds. Then someone started laughing. It was the same cruel laughter that had greeted humanity's membership application months ago. "Humanitarian assistance?" The Valtharan Prime Minister's voice rang with disbelief. "What could your primitive species possibly do against the Corvanthi Empire?" "Your entire military consists of chemical rockets and metal bullets," added Admiral Zethkar. "The Corvanthi would destroy your entire fleet in minutes." The laughter spread through the chamber. Even in their panic, the aliens found time to mock humanity's offer of help. They were desperate, but not desperate enough to accept aid from the galaxy's weakest species. "Nevertheless," Hyun-Woo continued calmly, "we are prepared to deploy 12 ships to assist in evacuation operations. We cannot fight the Corvanthi, but we can help save civilian lives." The council speaker, ancient and tired, finally nodded. "Very well. Earth's token gesture is accepted. Try not to get yourselves killed pointlessly." 3 hours later, the human fleet arrived at the edge of Federation space. 12 ships, just as Hyun-Woo had promised. They looked exactly like the primitive vessels the aliens expected. Simple metal hulls, basic fusion drives, and outdated weapon systems. Admiral Junho Kim commanded the flagship Teguk from his bridge. Around him, his crew worked at stations that looked almost crude compared to alien technology. The displays were flat screens instead of holographic projections. The controls were physical buttons and switches rather than mental interfaces. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Min Jung Park, "we are receiving distress signals from the Andromeda sector. The Corvanthi battle group is attacking civilian transport ships." Junho nodded. "Signal the fleet. We are moving to intercept." "Sir," Lieutenant Sung-Ho Lee spoke up from the tactical station. "That battle group consists of 60 Corvanthi warships. Our orders were to provide humanitarian assistance, not engage in combat." "Our orders," Junho replied quietly, "were to help. Those civilians need help." The human fleet changed course toward the Andromeda sector. On Federation monitoring stations, alien observers watched with a mixture of pity and fascination. The primitive humans were flying straight into a battle they could not possibly win. It would be a massacre, but at least it would be quick. Captain Wanbin Park commanded the destroyer Arirang. His ship was smaller than the flagship, but its crew was just as determined. They reached the battle zone first and immediately saw the scope of the disaster. A Corvanthi battle group was systematically destroying civilian evacuation ships. Men, women, and children from a dozen different species were dying in the cold vacuum of space. The alien fleet's advanced weapons cut through the transport ships like paper. "Sir," reported Weapons Officer Subin Han, "enemy fleet detected. 60 vessels, all armed with dimensional warfare systems." Wanbin studied the tactical display. The Corvanthi ships were arranged in a perfect formation, their weapons firing in coordinated volleys. Their dimensional shields shimmered around each. "Vessel-like protective cocoons. Lock weapons on the lead ship," Wanbin ordered. "Sir, our weapons cannot penetrate their shields." Lock weapons. The Arirang fired first. Its plasma cannons sent streams of energy across space toward the nearest Corvanthi vessel. The enemy ship's shields absorbed the impact without even flickering. The Corvanthi admiral turned his attention to this new threat. Through his ship's sensors, he examined the human vessel. Its design was laughably primitive. Its weapons were centuries out of date. Its shields were so weak they barely registered on his instruments. "Destroy the insect," he ordered dismissively. 3. Corvanthi ships turned their weapons toward the Arirang, their dimensional cannons charged with deadly energy. The human destroyer was about to become space dust. Then something impossible happened. The Arirang simply vanished. Not destroyed. Not disabled. Gone. The space where it had been was completely empty, as if the ship had never existed at all. The Corvanthi admiral stared at his displays in confusion. Where did it go? His answer came in the form of plasma fire erupting from directly behind his fleet. The Arirang had appeared in the middle of the Corvanthi formation, its weapons blazing. But these were not the same weapons that had fired ineffectively moments before. The human ship's true armament revealed itself. Quantum disruptors that could tear holes in reality itself. Singularity missiles that created miniature black holes. Energy beams that existed in 17 different dimensions simultaneously. The nearest Corvanthi vessel exploded before its crew could even react. The ship next to it simply collapsed as its atomic structure was rewritten by human quantum weapons. A third ship tried to flee, only to discover that space itself was being manipulated around it. "Impossible," the Corvanthi admiral whispered. "No species has this technology." The rest of the human fleet arrived and revealed their own true nature. These were not primitive metal ships with chemical rockets. They were masterworks of engineering that made Corvanthi technology look like stone tools. The Teguk phased through 3 different dimensions as it attacked. Its hull existed in multiple realities at once, making it impossible to target or damage. Admiral Jun-Ho watched calmly as his ship's weapons systematically dismantled the enemy formation. Captain Wanbin's voice came over the communication system. "Sir, enemy shields are adapting to our quantum disruptors, switching to singularity weapons." "Confirmed," Jun-Ho replied. "All ships, execute Pattern 7. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking from impossible angles. Their weapons bypassed every known defense. Their tactics defied the laws of physics that other species took for granted. The Corvanthi battle group, which had destroyed 3 Federation worlds without losing a single ship, was being annihilated by 12 human vessels that the galaxy had dismissed as harmless toys. Admiral Korath tried desperately to contact his fleet. "All ships, retreat immediately. Use dimensional jump drives. Get out of there now." But it was too late. The humans had somehow sealed the local space-time continuum. The Corvanthi could not jump to other dimensions. They could not flee faster than light. They were trapped in normal space with an enemy that fought like gods of war. In 17 minutes, it was over. The Corvanthi battle group was gone. 60 of the galaxy's most advanced warships had been reduced to scattered atoms. The human fleet hung motionless in space, their weapons powered down, their true forms hidden once again behind false metal hulls. Admiral Jun Ho opened a communication channel to the surviving civilian ships. His voice was calm and professional. "This is Admiral Kim of the Earth Defense Force. The immediate threat has been neutralized. Medical ships are standing by to assist wounded civilians." The aliens in the evacuation fleet stared at their sensors in shock. The humans had just accomplished something that the entire Federation military could not do. They had faced the galaxy's most feared warriors and won without losing a single ship. On monitoring stations throughout Federation space, alien observers watched the recorded battle footage over and over again. They enhanced the images, analyzed the weapon signatures, and tried to understand what they had just witnessed. The species they had mocked as primitive had just demonstrated technology that was centuries ahead of anything in the galaxy. The harmless humans had weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics. Their crude ships could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Ambassador Hyun Woo received an urgent communication from the Federation Council. The same aliens, who had laughed at his membership application, were now desperate to speak with him. "Ambassador Kim," the council speaker said, his ancient voice trembling with shock, "we need to discuss immediate military cooperation agreements with Earth." Hyun Woo smiled politely. "Of course, honored council speaker. Earth is always willing to provide humanitarian assistance to our galactic neighbors." The word humanitarian took on a very different meaning now. The comedy show was over. The real performance had begun. The news spread faster than light itself. Across the galaxy, alien news networks played the same footage over and over again. 60 Corvanthi warships destroyed in 17 minutes by 12 human vessels. The galaxy's most feared warriors defeated, so completely that not a single enemy ship escaped to tell the tale. On the Veltharan homeworld, Prime Minister Veltharan watched the battle recordings for the 20th time. His crystalline body flickered with patterns of confusion and fear. The humans had technology that should not exist. Their ships moved through dimensions that Veltharan science said were impossible to reach. "How long have they possessed this capability?" he asked his intelligence chief. "Unknown, sir. Our best estimates suggest decades, possibly centuries. They have been hiding their true abilities while we dismissed them as primitive." Veltharan felt something he had not experienced in his 1,000-year lifespan. Genuine terror. If humans could hide technology this advanced, what else were they capable of? Meanwhile, General Sujin Lim stood in the command center of the Earth vessel Cheon Wang. The ship was 10 times larger than any vessel the aliens had seen, hidden in folded space where their sensors could not detect it. Around her, thousands of officers coordinated humanity's expanding operations. "Status report," she ordered. "All stealth fleets have revealed themselves on schedule," reported Colonel Jae-sung Kim. "The aliens are detecting human ships in every major system. Current count is over 4,000 vessels and climbing," Sujin nodded. For decades, humanity had been positioning ships throughout the galaxy. The aliens thought space was empty, but it was actually filled with cloaked human vessels waiting for this moment. What about the diplomatic missions? 17 species have requested immediate meetings with our ambassadors. The Corvanthi Empire has sent envoys begging for mercy. Even the Dominion fleet is asking for negotiations. The transformation was remarkable. 3 days ago, these same species had been laughing at humanity's weakness. Now they were scrambling to avoid humanity's wrath. On the border world of Epsilon Eridani, negotiator Minho Kang sat across from a delegation of Corvanthi representatives. The warriors who had once terrorized the galaxy now looked small and frightened. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Korath, could barely meet Minho's eyes. "We come seeking peace," Korath said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Corvanthi Empire wishes to end all hostilities with humanity." Minho smiled pleasantly. He wore a simple business suit and carried no weapons. Yet Korath flinched every time the human moved. "That is wonderful news," Minho replied. "Earth has always preferred peaceful solutions to conflicts. We surrender our fleet to your command. All Corvanthi military forces will cease operations immediately." "Oh, that is not necessary," Minho said with the same pleasant smile. "Earth does not wish to occupy your territory or control your military. We simply want to help." Korath looked confused. In his culture, victory in battle meant total domination of the defeated enemy. "Help?" "Yes. You see, the Corvanthi have made some poor decisions lately. Attacking peaceful worlds, killing innocent civilians. These actions suggest that your people need guidance to become better galactic citizens." Minho activated a holographic display. It showed detailed plans for restructuring Corvanthi society, new education systems that would teach peace instead of war, economic programs that would make the warrior culture dependent on human technology, cultural exchange initiatives that would slowly replace Corvanthi traditions with human values. "We want to help your people find a better path," Minho continued. "All we ask in return is your cooperation and friendship." Korath studied the plans with growing horror. This was not military conquest. This was something far more complete. The humans were not just defeating the Corvanthi Empire, they were transforming it into something entirely new. "What if we refuse?" Korath asked weakly. Minho's smile never wavered. "Why would you refuse help from friends?" On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Eugene O was demonstrating humanity's medical technology to a gathering of alien scientists. The meeting was held on Sanctuary Station, a neutral research facility that served the entire galactic community. "As you can see," Dr. O explained, "our regeneration chambers can regrow lost limbs in a matter of hours." The alien scientists watched in amazement as a volunteer's severed arm grew back completely. The Keplerite observers ran diagnostic scans, trying to understand the technology. Their instruments detected energy patterns that their science could not explain. "How is this possible?" asked Dr. Zixtel, the station's chief medical officer. "Cellular regeneration at this speed should require more energy than your ship's entire power output." "Oh, it is quite simple, really," Dr. O replied modestly. "We use quantum field manipulation to accelerate the natural healing process. The energy comes from dimensional taps that access the zero-point field." The aliens stared at her in bewilderment. Those were just words to them. They had no idea what quantum field manipulation actually meant, or how dimensional taps could work. "Could you teach us this technology?" asked another scientist. "Of course. Earth is always happy to share knowledge with our friends. We will need to establish training centers on your worlds naturally. Our instructors will need access to your medical facilities to properly integrate the technology." What Dr. O did not mention was that the technology was deliberately designed to be dependent on human oversight. The quantum field generators required activation codes that only humans possessed. The dimensional taps needed maintenance that only human engineers could provide. Any species that adopted human medical technology would become completely reliant on human support, and once they were dependent, they could never become independent again. Engineer Seok Jin Bae was having similar conversations with alien industrial leaders. His demonstration took place in the asteroid belt around the star Vega, where several species operated mining operations. "Watch carefully," Seok Jin said as his ship approached a large asteroid. "Our matter converters can transform raw materials into finished products in minutes." A beam of energy struck the asteroid. The rock began to reshape itself, flowing like liquid metal. Within an hour, the worthless chunk of stone had become a fully functional space station, complete with living quarters, power systems, and docking bays. "Incredible," breathed a Zephyrian engineer. "You created a habitat for 10,000 beings in less time than it takes us to refine basic metals." "This is only a small demonstration," Seok Jin replied. "Our larger converters can transform entire moons into garden worlds. Imagine turning your desert planets into lush paradises overnight." The alien engineers were practically drooling at the possibilities. Their civilizations had spent thousands of years slowly terraforming worlds through gradual atmospheric modification. Humanity was offering to do the same work in days instead of centuries. "What would you want in return for this technology?" asked a Dominion representative. "Nothing at all," Seok Jin said with a friendly smile. "Earth believes in helping our galactic neighbors. All we ask is permission to establish technical support centers on your worlds. Our engineers will need to monitor the equipment to ensure it operates safely." Again, what he did not mention was that the matter converters were designed with built-in dependencies. They required rare elements that could only be obtained from human suppliers. The control systems used quantum encryption that only human technicians could access. Any attempt to reverse engineer the technology would cause the equipment to shut down permanently. Back on Earth, Intelligence Director Hye-won Young reviewed reports from around the galaxy. Her network of agents had been busy documenting the alien response to humanity's revelation. Psychological profiles are updating as predicted, she reported to the High Command. "The Valtherans are in complete shock. Their rigid mindset cannot process the fact that they were so completely wrong about human capabilities." "What about the Zephyrians?" asked General Lim. "They are adapting quickly, as expected. They see opportunity in the new situation and are trying to position themselves as humanity's closest allies. They have already requested exclusive trade agreements. And the Dominans? They are the most dangerous. Their paranoid nature makes them naturally suspicious of our motives. However, their isolationist tendencies work in our favor. They are not sharing their concerns with other species." Hye-won brought up a galactic map showing the current political situation. Green dots marked worlds that had already requested human assistance. Yellow dots showed species that were still undecided. Red dots indicated potential resistance. 17. "Major civilizations have already signed cooperation agreements with Earth," she continued. 23 more are in active negotiations. Only 6 species are showing signs of organized resistance. 6 species out of over 200, General Lim mused. "Better than our projections suggested. The psychological conditioning has been very effective. Decades of being dismissed as harmless have made the aliens unable to see us as a genuine threat. They think we are simply a newly advanced species offering friendship and aid. They do not suspect our true intentions? Not yet. They see individual benefits, medical technology, industrial assistance, military protection, but they do not understand the bigger picture. Each agreement makes them more dependent on human systems. Each favor creates deeper obligations. On the Valtharan homeworld, Prime Minister Veltharan was meeting with his council of advisors. The crystal beings were still trying to understand how they had been so completely fooled by humanity. "We must analyze this situation logically," Veltharan declared. "The humans possess advanced technology. They have offered to share this technology freely. Logic suggests we should accept their assistance." "But, sir," objected one advisor, "how do we know they are being truthful about their intentions? What alternative do we have? The Corvanthi threat still exists. Other hostile species may follow their example. We need human protection." It was true. The galaxy had become a much more dangerous place. The Corvanthi attack had shattered the ideal illusion of peaceful coexistence. Now every species was looking for ways to defend themselves, and humanity was offering the perfect solution. Protection, technology, and guidance, all for the simple price of friendship and cooperation. The Veltharans voted unanimously to accept Earth's assistance package. They had no idea they were voting for their own enslavement. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. Species after species was choosing to accept human help rather than face an uncertain future alone. They saw themselves as making practical decisions for their survival. They could not see the invisible chains being forged around them with every agreement they signed. In her command center, General Lim watched the green dots multiply on the galactic map. Each new ally was another step toward humanity's ultimate goal. The laughter that had once mocked human weakness was now replaced by grateful applause for human generosity. The aliens thought they were being saved. In reality, they were being conquered more completely than any military victory could achieve. And the most beautiful part was that they were doing it to themselves, willingly and gratefully. The standing ovation had begun. 2 years had passed since humanity revealed their true power to the galaxy. The transformation was complete, though most aliens did not realize it yet. President Seung-Hwan Lee stood before the rebuilt Galactic Assembly, addressing representatives from over 300 species. The Great Hall had been reconstructed using human technology, its crystal walls now infused with quantum processors that could monitor every heartbeat, every thought pattern, every emotional response of everyone inside. "Friends and allies," President Lee began, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. "We gather today to celebrate 2 years of unprecedented peace and prosperity." The assembled aliens applauded enthusiastically. Their faces showed genuine joy and gratitude. They truly believed that humanity had saved them from chaos and brought order to the galaxy. Behind the president, massive displays showed the impressive statistics. Crime rates had dropped by 90% across all member worlds. Industrial production had increased by 400%. Medical advances had extended lifespans for every species. Interstellar trade was more efficient than ever before. What the displays did not show was that these improvements came with a price. Every crime prevented was detected by human surveillance systems. Every factory operated using human technology. Every medical treatment required human-supplied materials. Every trade route was monitored by human intelligence networks. President Lee continued his speech, highlighting the success stories. "The former Corvanthi Empire has become a model of peaceful cooperation. Their warrior culture has been transformed into a guardian philosophy, protecting the innocent instead of terrorizing them. In the audience, former Admiral Korath nodded approvingly. He wore simple robes now instead of battle armor. His scarred face showed contentment rather than the cruel hunger that had once defined his species. He truly believed that humanity had helped his people find a better path. Korath did not remember the neural conditioning sessions. He could not recall the months of psychological reprogramming that had slowly rewritten his basic instincts. The memories had been carefully edited by human neuroscientists, leaving only happiness and loyalty behind. The Veltharan Republic has embraced new forms of logic and reasoning, President Lee continued. Their crystal cities now shine brighter than ever before, powered by clean fusion technology that will last for millennia. Prime Minister Veltharan glowed with pride. His crystalline body pulsed with patterns of satisfaction and accomplishment. He had led his people into this golden age of prosperity and advancement. He did not question why Veltharan scientists could no longer understand their own technology. He did not wonder why every major decision now required consultation with human advisors. The quantum processors in his brain made such thoughts feel uncomfortable and unnecessary. Director In-Soo Park watched the assembly from a hidden observation room deep within the station. Around him, banks of monitoring equipment tracked the mental states of every alien representative. The psychological conditioning programs were working perfectly. Status report, he requested from his technical staff. All neural implants functioning within normal parameters, reported Dr. Kyung-Soo Han. Compliance rates are at 98% across all monitored populations. The remaining 2% show only minor deviation patterns. What about the resistance movements? Effectively neutralized. The few remaining dissidents are isolated on remote worlds with no means of communication or travel. They pose no threat to operational security. In-Soo nodded with satisfaction. The resistance had been harder to handle than the general population. Some aliens had proven naturally immune to psychological conditioning. Others had suspected the truth about humanity's intentions too early to be safely reprogrammed. These troublemakers had been quietly relocated to nature preserves on distant planets. They lived comfortable lives in beautiful environments, never knowing that their worlds were actually elaborate prisons surrounded by invisible force fields. Captain Da-Yun Choi commanded one of the monitoring stations that ensured continued compliance across the galaxy. Her ship, the Sejong, orbited a system that contained 12 different species living in perfect harmony. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Woo Jin Lee from his sensor station, "we are detecting anomalous brainwave patterns from the Keplerite settlement on Planet 4. Da-Yun frowned. The Keplerites were machine beings, which made them harder to monitor than organic species. Their electronic minds could sometimes develop unexpected thoughts despite the conditioning programs. Nature of the anomaly? Some individuals are asking questions about pre-contact history. They want to access archived data from before humans arrived in the galaxy. This was dangerous. The historical records contained evidence of humanity's long-term planning and deception. If the Keplerites started comparing past and present too carefully, they might notice the inconsistencies. "Deploy Memory Adjustment Protocol 7, Da-Un ordered. Make it look like a routine software update." Within hours, nanobots were released into the planet's atmosphere. The microscopic machines would enter the Keplerites' electronic brains and make subtle adjustments to their curiosity subroutines. They would lose interest in historical research and focus on more immediate concerns instead. The Keplerites would never know that their own thoughts had been edited. They would simply wake up tomorrow with different interests and priorities. Meanwhile, in the deepest levels of Earth's government complex, the real architects of human expansion were planning their next moves. The Shadow Council met in a room that existed in 17 different dimensions simultaneously, making it impossible for any known technology to detect or penetrate. The integration of the local galaxy is 97% complete, reported Strategic Coordinator Minjung, Siu. Only 3 species maintain any significant independence, and they are all confined to single-system territories. "What about expansion beyond our current borders?" asked Council Chairman Dongwoo Park. "Long-range scouts have identified 47 galaxies within feasible travel distance. Preliminary surveys show advanced civilizations in 31 of them. We have already begun seeding infiltration teams in the nearest targets." The process was being repeated on a vast scale. Human agents were arriving in distant galaxies, posing as harmless explorers or refugees from some imaginary disaster. They would spend decades studying the local species, learning their weaknesses, and preparing the groundwork for eventual conquest. Timeline for full universal integration? Conservative estimates suggest 200 years for local galactic cluster dominance. Full universe control within a millennium. Chairman Park smiled. Humanity had learned patience during their long preparation for galactic conquest. They could wait as long as necessary to achieve total victory. Back in the Galactic Assembly, President Lee was concluding his speech with announcements about future projects. Earth is pleased to announce the construction of new research facilities on 47 worlds. These centers will advance our understanding of physics, biology, and consciousness itself. The aliens applauded again. They saw these research facilities as gifts that would benefit their entire civilizations. They did not understand that the real purpose was to study them more thoroughly, to find new ways to control their thoughts and behavior. "We are also expanding the Galactic Peace Corps," President Lee continued. "Volunteer humans will serve on every member world, helping local governments implement best practices for social harmony and economic efficiency." More applause. The Yubai aliens loved their human advisors. These friendly, helpful beings had solved so many problems and made life so much better for everyone. They did not realize that every human advisor was actually an intelligence officer. Each one carried quantum communicators that could instantly report any sign of rebellion or independent thinking. Each one had been trained in advanced psychological manipulation techniques. The Peace Corps volunteers would ensure that human control remained absolute on every world, while making the local populations feel grateful for their presence. After the assembly ended, President Lee met privately with key alien leaders. These were the most important figures in galactic politics, the ones whose cooperation was essential for maintaining the illusion of voluntary participation. "President Lee," said Chancellor Vexnor of the Andromedan Confederation, "my people are concerned about reports of strange dreams and memory gaps among our population." Lee nodded sympathetically. "These symptoms are not uncommon during periods of rapid social change. Our medical teams believe it is a natural response to the stress of adapting to new technologies and ideas. Is there anything we can do to help our citizens?" "Of course. Earth has developed therapeutic programs specifically for this condition. We can establish treatment centers on your worlds within a few weeks." Chancellor Vexnor looked relieved. "That would be wonderful. We trust human medicine completely. The treatment centers would actually make the memory problems worse, not better. They would use advanced neuroscience to more thoroughly erase any recollections of pre-human independence. The aliens would emerge from treatment feeling happier and more compliant than ever before. Similar conversations took place with dozens of other leaders. Each one brought their concerns to humanity for solutions. Each one received answers that would make them even more dependent on human guidance. The process was so smooth that it felt natural. The aliens genuinely believed they were making their own choices, seeking help from trusted friends. They could not see the invisible puppet strings that guided their every decision. In her private office, Director In-Soo Park reviewed the psychological profiles of the entire galactic population. The data showed remarkable uniformity. Fear had been replaced by contentment. Suspicion had been replaced by trust. Independence had been replaced by willing cooperation. The species that had once mocked humanity as primitive apes now worshipped them as wise teachers and generous protectors. They competed for human approval like children seeking praise from their parents. The transformation was so complete that most aliens could not even remember what life had been like before humans arrived. Their histories had been gradually rewritten, their cultures slowly modified, their very thoughts shaped by subtle influences they could not detect. They lived in golden cages, pampered and comfortable, never realizing they were prisoners. They sang songs of gratitude for their captivity, believing it was freedom. The laughter had stopped completely now. In its place was respectful silence, grateful submission, and the quiet terror of those few who still remembered what they had lost. But even that terror was fading. Soon, there would be no one left who remembered the old galaxy. The time before humanity's benevolent rule. The final act was nearly complete. Archivist Chan-Woo Kim sealed the final vault deep beneath the Swiss mountains. Inside lay the complete record of humanity's greatest achievement, the conquest of an entire galaxy without firing a shot in anger after that first demonstration of power. The vault contained thousands of documents, recordings, and artifacts that told the true story. Project Erebus files dating back 70 years. Records of the crashed alien ships that had given humanity its first glimpse of advanced technology. Psychological profiles of every major alien species. Plans for neural conditioning programs that had reshaped the minds of trillions of beings. Future. Historians would study these records, if any future historians were allowed to exist. For now, the truth was buried as deeply as human technology could manage. The galaxy's new citizens would never learn how completely they had been deceived. Chan-Woo walked through the archive one final time. Holographic displays showed scenes from the early days of the plan. Human scientists working in secret laboratories, reverse engineering alien technology while the world above believed they were still struggling to reach the moon. Psychologists developing techniques to modify alien thought patterns. Engineers building weapons that could manipulate reality itself. Remarkable, he said to himself. We planned for everything except how easy it would be. In another part of the facility, curator In-Soo Park was preparing the sanitized version of human history for public consumption. This would be the story that alien children learned in school, the official record that explained humanity's rise to galactic leadership. Chakin, new history was inspiring and completely false. It told of brave human explorers who discovered faster-than-light travel through pure scientific genius. It described first contact with aliens as a peaceful meeting between equals. It explained humanity's advanced technology as the result of rapid innovation driven by human creativity and determination. There was no mention of the decades of deception, no reference to the systematic psychological manipulation, no record of the careful infiltration and sabotage that had weakened alien civilizations. The official story made humanity look like natural leaders who had earned their position through wisdom and benevolence. "The children will believe it completely," Yunsu said to her assistant. "They will grow up thinking their parents willingly chose to follow human guidance." The assistant, a young Vialtharan named Kilvin, nodded enthusiastically. His crystal body pulsed with patterns of admiration and loyalty. "Humans are such wonderful teachers. I am grateful my species was wise enough to accept your friendship." Kilvin had no memory of his grandfather, the engineer who had been among the first to suspect that human sabotage was causing equipment failures across the galaxy. Those memories had been carefully removed, replaced with happier thoughts about the benefits of human technology. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on millions of worlds. The last generation that remembered independence was dying of old age. Their children had grown up under human guidance, never knowing anything else. Their grandchildren thought of humans as beloved protectors who had always been there. Admiral Yanwu Seo commanded the human fleets that now patrolled every sector of the galaxy. His ships were still invisible to alien sensors, still armed with weapons that could destroy solar systems, but they rarely needed to use such power anymore. "Status. Report," he requested from his flag captain. "All sectors report normal activity, sir. No signs of organized resistance." The few isolated incidents of antisocial behavior were handled by local human advisors using standard psychological adjustment protocols. Yonwu smiled. The galaxy was more peaceful now than it had been in thousands of years. Crime was virtually non-existent. Wars were impossible. Poverty and disease had been eliminated. Everyone was happy, productive, and completely obedient. Of course, they were also completely enslaved. But since they did not know they were enslaved, they experienced only the benefits of their situation. "Any reports from the deep space monitoring stations?" "Station 7 has detected artificial signals from the Whirlpool Galaxy. The patterns suggest an advanced technological civilization, possibly multiple species." "Excellent. Signal command." "Tell them we have identified our next target." The expansion continued. Human scout ships were already traveling to distant galaxies, carrying the same false identities and cover stories that had worked so well in their home galaxy. They would arrive as refugees, explorers, or peaceful traders. They would spend decades learning about local species and cultures. And when the time was right, they would spring the same trap that had captured trillions of beings in the Milky Way. On Earth itself, the planetary government was preparing for the next phase of expansion. Director Wu Jin Nam reviewed intelligence reports from 47 different galaxies. Each one showed unique challenges that would require customized approaches. The Andromeda Galaxy has a dominant species that values individual freedom above all else, reported his chief analyst. "Standard psychological conditioning may not be effective. What do you recommend?" "A modified approach. We make freedom itself dependent on human technology. They can have all the personal liberty they want as long as they use our systems to exercise it." Nam nodded. It was a clever solution. Give the aliens the illusion of freedom while controlling the infrastructure that made freedom possible. They would never realize they were trapped until it was too late. "What about the Magellanic Clouds? Those galaxies are dominated by energy. beings similar to the Zephyrians. Our experts believe they can be controlled through careful manipulation of their energy sources. Timeline for initial infiltration? Advanced teams will arrive within 5 years. Full operation could begin within 20 years. Nam approved the plans. Humanity had learned patience. They could wait decades or centuries to achieve total victory. Time was on their side. Meanwhile, the current galaxy continued to function perfectly under human guidance. The old alien governments still existed, but they were now staffed entirely by beings whose thoughts and loyalties had been shaped by human conditioning programs. Former Chancellor Vexnor of the Andromedan Confederation had just signed legislation that would establish human education centers on every world in his territory. He believed he was making an independent decision that would benefit his people. He could not see the neural implants that made certain thoughts feel good and others feel uncomfortable. The education centers would ensure that the next generation of Andromedans grew up thinking like humans. They would learn human values, human history, and human ways of solving problems. By the time they reached adulthood, they would be psychologically identical to humans in everything except their physical appearance. This process was being repeated across thousands of worlds. Each species maintained its unique biology, but their minds were slowly being standardized according to human preferences. Diversity of thought was disappearing, replaced by cheerful conformity to human ideals. The Corvanthi had been the most dramatic transformation. The former warriors now served as the galaxy's police force, but their definition of justice had been completely rewritten. They protected the innocent and punished the guilty, but their understanding of innocence and guilt came from human moral codes rather than their own cultural traditions. Former Admiral Korath now commanded the Galactic Peace Enforcement Division. He genuinely believed he was serving a noble cause, protecting civilians from criminals and maintaining order throughout civilized space. He could not remember the days when his own people had been the criminals and raiders that everyone else feared. His officers were equally dedicated to their new mission. They hunted down the few remaining dissidents with the same ruthless efficiency they had once used to terrorize merchant ships. But now they felt proud of their work instead of hungry for conquest. The transformation was so complete that no one questioned it anymore. The galaxy had always been peaceful and prosperous under human leadership. Any suggestion otherwise was clearly the result of mental illness or criminal thinking. In the deepest vaults of human intelligence, analysts were already working on the next generation of control methods. Brain implants that could modify thoughts in real time, genetic modifications that would make alien species physically dependent on human-produced chemicals, quantum consciousness manipulation that could rewrite personality at the subatomic level. "We are approaching perfect control," reported Dr. Hai Jin Moon to the High Command. "Within another generation, we will be able to modify alien behavior with the precision of adjusting a machine." What about resistance from new species we encounter? Each conquest provides us with new data about biological and psychological manipulation. We are becoming more efficient with every campaign. The human empire was growing not just in size, but in sophistication. Each new galaxy would fall faster than the last. Each new species would be absorbed more completely into the collective human consciousness. Deep in space, monitoring stations detected the first artificial signals from the Sculptor galaxy. Another advanced civilization, unaware that it had just been marked for conquest. The cycle would begin again. First contact, careful study, gradual infiltration, and finally the revelation that would shatter their understanding of reality. But this time, Humanity would not even need to demonstrate military power. The psychological techniques had been perfected. The new species would surrender their independence willingly, convinced that they were gaining something valuable in return. The universe was vast, containing billions of galaxies and trillions of intelligent species. But humanity had time, patience, and most importantly, a perfect understanding of how to make other beings love their own enslavement. One by one, galaxy by galaxy, species by species, the universe was being transformed into a single vast empire, ruled by beings who had once been dismissed as primitive apes playing with chemical rockets. The laughter had echoed across one small galaxy, long ago. Now it was humanity's turn to smile, and their smile would eventually stretch across the entire universe. The performance was complete. The audience had given their standing ovation, and the show would go on forever, in theater after theater, until every conscious being in existence was applauding humanity's magnificent deception. The curtain would never fall, because the audience had forgotten they had the option to leave. In the end, the greatest joke was that no one was laughing anymore. They were all too busy being grateful for the privilege of their own defeat.